Hey, what's up everybody, it's your boy Ryan here. So today I'll be doing What If Deku Had All For One Part 12, I guess. So let's begin. And before we start, here's the Steam gift card code. If you get it, just tell me in a comment and tell me if it works. If it doesn't work, I had to throw hands with the seller. So yeah, let's begin. Izuku finished having lunch with Stella. Their lunch went without much fanfare, as much of 1A was too scared to go near Izuku currently, and only Stella friends had the courage to go near them and sit down at their table. They didn't feel scared going around Izuku since they met him for a brief time before, and they knew Stella would stop him from doing anything to them. As such, the lunch went without interruption, even though Izuku could see his former sister and her friends were looking at him most of the time and wanted to try and talk to him. However, Izuku had no intention of getting involved with his past so easily or forgiving her either. As such, once the lunch came to an end, Izuku decided it was time to go hunting for personal students. First, Izuku made a stop at Nizu's office to confirm that he would have no issue taking the students on as personal students and that he wasn't violating any school rules since he was now an employee. Nizu thought it over and shook his head and said that it was completely fine for Izuku to take on the student. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to kidnap him from his classes. Then Izuku said as he got up to leave, and Nizu just rolled his eyes at Izuku's antics and wished him good luck on getting the student to agree. As such, he could find Izuku walking down the hallway searching for the homeroom that Shinso was a part of. After some searching, Izuku found the classroom and knocked on the door and was called in. Everyone in the classroom froze at who appeared at the door. Even the homeroom teacher, Prison Mike, was frozen. Hello, Hunter? What do you need? Prison Mike asked as he was going over the details for the sports festival. Izuku looked at him and then looked around the classroom until he found who he was looking for. Izuku then walked over to Shinso and Prison Mike paled. Why did you do Shinso to catch his attention? Prison Mike thought as he just watched. Shinso tensed up and thought he was pissed the new teacher of due to earlier action during the day. Mike, moving forward until after the sports festival is over, Shinso will not be coming to class. He's my new personal student since I'm going to train him for sports festival, Izuku said as he grabbed Shinso things and smiled under his mask. Mike just paled a bit since Izuku was far stronger than All Might and somehow got interested in the student. Please just return him alive after the festival. I don't need to do the paperwork for the dead student, Prison Mike stated, and everyone in the room, including Shinso, paled at his words. Izuku walked away with Shinso things and turned back to him. Are you coming or not? I won't offer personal training for the sports festival a second time, so if you decline then that's it, Izuku stated, and Shinso was still frozen in shock but snapped out of his thoughts when Prison Mike tapped him on his shoulder and leaned down. I suggest you go. You will increase your odds of succeeding in the festival if you learn from him, Prison Mike whispered, and Shinso bolted up and to Izuku at that statement from Prison Mike. As such, Izuku led Shinso away to gym and Izuku asked Nizu for personal use. Shinso kept silent the entire way and was confused about where they were going but knew he was still on campus. They entered some forest area and walked for 5 minutes until they reached a building that was separated from most of the campus. They walked into it to find older style gym and training equipment. From now on, you will be coming here the moment school starts. Don't even bother going to the homeroom or anything else. You will get your lunch and then return here after you're done eating. We will be working during the entire time we can to get you as best prepared for the sports festival as we can so you can move into the hero program. Do you understand? Izuku asked. Shinso looked at Hunter and asked why. Why are you training me? Shinso asked, confused on why a pro hero like Hunter would want to train him. Izuku looked at Shinso and then removed his false mask since he was still in his hero outfit. Why indeed, for many reasons. First, when you were all in the classroom doorway of 1A, you were the only student to not even flinch when I released small amount of killing intent. Well, except Stella, but that's to be accepted. since she is my girlfriend and deal with me like 24/7. So you have some good willpower to withstand that, since I can make a lot of people, even grown adults, flinch and step back at the amount I had released on all of you. Izuku stated, and Shinso's eyes widened a bit and now understood what that ill feeling was from earlier in the day when he saw Hunter. Izuku thought it over for a bit. He lacks self-worth a bit due to his quirk being viewed as villainous. Izuku thought so, decided to reveal the truth of his quirk. Second reason, what do you think of my quirk is? Izuku asked, and Shinso was confused since he didn't know much about it. He didn't hear it had something to do with shadow, and it said what he knew. He knew. You will be right to a point now. Let's talk about your quirk brainwashing, Izuku stated, and Shinso tensed a bit. You have led a life with being looked down upon and scorned. I know the feeling quite well. You were told your quirk is villainous, and they are so wrong. It's not the quirk that is villain-like, but the user that determine it. Do you think I am a villain with my quirk? Izuku stated and asked his question, and Shinso stated he wasn't. Oh, even though my quirk can steal yours and leave you quirkless, Izuku stated, and Shinso's eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, and he didn't think a quirk like that existed. How does that even exist? Shinso asked, and Izuku chuckled. It does. My father has a quirk as well, but mine is a bit different. Our quirk are called All for One. It's also the name of the villain, which is actually my father's old villain name when he was a villain for the past 200 years or so, until he quits when he had me. My quirk allow me to copy, steal, give, and combine quirks at my will. Do you think this quirk make me a villain? Izuku stated, and Shinso said no. Then why would you be a villain since my quirk is the manifestation of greed itself? Izuku asked, and Shinso started to feel a sense of pride in his quirk and in himself. Izuku then told Shinso this entire story to help build a connection with Shinso. He understood that Izuku completely understood being looked down upon, being neglected, being scorned, and that Izuku wouldn't do that to him. So Shinso, does that answer the question of why I want to train you? Izuku asked, and Shinso nodded his head, and Izuku smiled. Good. It's time we get to training then. We have 2 weeks to get you as trained as we can, but I admit I'm going to cheat it a bit since I'm going to use multiple quirks on you to help you push forward and get better results. One of the quirks that I'm going to use is called Power Nap, which grant us both as a full night rest if we sleep for 30 minutes and have skin contact with you. So I just need to hold your hand, or I have it on your shoulder or something. The second quirk is called Growth Experiment. This quirk allow me to trick your body to increase your metabolism and body growth to speed up the rate of muscle growth and muscle memory, but this means you need to consume a lot of food to maintain the energy you will need, or it can get risky for your health. Izuku stated and explained the 2 quirks that he was going to be using on Shinso. Overall, you are going to feel like you are going to be dying for a good portion of this training, as we need to get your body in a better shape, but also teach you a quirkless combat, since you can't rely on your quirk. You are not me, where you can just switch quirk if someone figures out a weakness to do it. I also want to train you in support gear, but it's pointless right now since you can't use support gear unless it's directly aid you medically for your quirk, Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head. Get in the ring. Let's start on what you already know for combat so I can see what I'm working with, and take your shirt off as well, Izuku stated, and Shinso did as he was told, and Izuku removed his hero outfit top as well, revealing all of his cards, and Shinso knew of them since he was told, but seeing them all was hard. What did they do to you? Shinso thought, but he had also said it out loud. They used me like a disposable toy, that's what they did to me, and now they want me back. They want to get back in my life, but I don't want them. Shinso, if you ever in unsafe situation, then tell me, and I will use my authority and power to ensure you are safe. Do you understand me? Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head. His foster parents weren't the best, but they never laid a hand on him. They only gave him the basic needs, which were honestly enough for Shinso, so he didn't complain since they never harmed him. Izuku thought started at him and spoke. I also mean, if your parents or whoever you are with aren't doing their job in caring of you as they should, do you understand? Izuku asked, and Shinso gulped and nodded his head but wouldn't look at Izuku in the eye, which made Izuku make a mental note to look on it later on. Anyway, let's start. I want you to throw a punch at me, Izuku said, and Shinso tried to throw a punch, but Izuku just grabbed it and flipped him over. Yeah, that was horrible. Let's just start from the basic portion, Izuku said, as it made Shinso get into the fighting position, and then Izuku corrected it. They kept doing this for 4 hours until Stella came into the gym. Hello boys, she said, and Izuku saw her and jumped out of the ring and told Shinso to take a break, which made Shinso fall on the ring mat in exhaustion since Izuku works him hard. Stella just rolled her eyes at the sight since Izuku was not easy to train under. Izuku walked over to her and gave her a kiss on the lips and took water bottle from her and sat down with her. How is it going? Stella asked him in regard to Shinso. Izuku looked at Shinso and thought it over. It's going. He should be at the decent stage when his time comes for the festival. I'm wondering if you mind him coming to the house since I want to get as many hours of training in. We will use the gym in a home to keep training and then have him spend the night in one of the guest rooms for the next 2 weeks. Izuku asked her and she thought it over and nodded her head and agreed to it. Izuku then got up and walked over to the ring. Shinso, would your guardian mind you staying at my house for the next 2 weeks to train? Izuku asked, and Shinso looked him in confusion but nodded his head. They won't care, so it's fine, Shinso stated, and Izuku nodded his head but just became another mental note for him to look into Shinso's current guardians, since Izuku refused to let someone to be neglected or abused, and Stella could see the thought just go across Izuku's eyes without him even speaking. Soon they all packed their things and Izuku saw Shinso call someone, and he listened in since he had his suspicions that Shinso's family or caretaker were not caring for him as they should. He listened to Shinso as he left a voicemail for his caretaker and said that he would be staying with a friend for 2 weeks as they trained for the sports festival, and then he hung up. Soon they returned to Izuku and Stella home. Shinso was surprised at the size and looked at the home, and he couldn't help but feel a bit jealous. Let's go down to the gym downstairs. We will get to work and Stella is going to make us dinner. While we keep working outside, you need as much training as you can get, so we will keep going non-stop and then use power nap to regain energy to keep going again, Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head and followed Izuku down a flight of stairs. It was a smaller gym than the one from UA, but it still had everything they would need, and it had a ring to fight in. Izuku and Shinso got into the ring and continued where they let off from the gym at UA, and Izuku did not hold back. Izuku Midoriya hated the child abusers, he hated people that neglected children, he hated people that harmed those that couldn't really defend themselves, and he really hated it when adults that are meant to care for a child and for the child end up taking advantage of his said child. Izuku blood boiled for anyone in those categories, and he was ruthless in dealing with those type of people. As the training went on with Shinso for about a week now, Izuku decided to call the detective and have him to start looking into Shinso's caretaker without raising any flags, and the information that Izuku gained was troubling. That caretaker will take the children with what people will deem as villain quirks, and yet nearly all of them have to run away from the caretakers, and it didn't paint a pretty picture. It was as if the children couldn't handle living in the home anymore and decided to run away. Izuku applied for a scratch warrant on the suspicion of child neglect and the fact that many of the children had run away from their homes, which painted them as either just horrible caretakers or that the children just were bad. It was barely enough, but with him flashing his special agent license and judges giving in and allowed him to get his warrant to start searching in deeper. Izuku would go out with while Shinso slept, or rather tried to sleep, since it turned out he had insomnia, which Izuku thought he was like a miniature version of his uncle in all honesty. Izuku decided to go look at the address for Shinso caretaker and slipped into the house via a shadow. He knew the caretaker were out currently at their jobs, so Izuku had good chance to look around the house and didn't like what he found. As Izuku looked around, he noticed the place was worn down and it looked like a place hard to live in. Izuku saw some mold as well and took pictures as evidence. If anything, Izuku thought he could get them on poor living condition and revoke their ability to foster children, since they received enough money to live in slight better place due to taking care of Shinso. As Izuku looked around the rest of the home, he came up upon Shinso's room, which was bare. It had a mattress on the floor and barely anything in the room except some clothing and spare UA uniforms. Izuku took picture of it and was really wanting to find out what his caretakers were thinking. As he moved around the home and looked at everything over, he noticed that the parents' room was far better in maintenance and living conditions than Shinso's room and the rest of the house. Izuku thought, though noticed that there was a door that leads to somewhere else. Izuku opened it and he was pissed. It led to an entirely separated apartment area that was far better condition. Izuku took picture of everything and how the door led into the other apartment area, and that there was evidence of parents living in it, but no sign of Shinso being allowed in it. He texted everything to the detective, who said he would go arrest the foster parents and that if Shinso was removed from their custody moving forward and would be moved to a new home, but Izuku didn't allow that to happen. He called the detective after seeing that. Detective, I'm taking custody of Shinso. I will foster him or even adopt him if I need to, Izuku stated, and the detective said it wasn't possible due to age limit. Detective, do I need to remind you that I have a special agent license? It allows me to get around many laws that restrict me on age, and doubt this will stop me either. Don't make me take drastic measures, Izuku stated, and the detective was silent and said he would see what he could do and end the call, but Izuku just called the family lawyer up and asked for legal advice. Seth, are you able to practice law in Japan? Izuku asked Seth King on the phone, and Seth confirmed he could. Good. I need to foster a child in Japan that is the same age as me. He's a kid in general studies of UA that I'm training for sports festival, and I just had him removed from his foster parents, but the detective on the case is a bit restraining to me taking Shinso due to the age requirement to foster, and Izuku stated to Seth King, and Seth was silent before speaking. It can be worked around. If anything, we can get your father to adopt the kid and then transfer the custody to you via the American court. I will get working on some legal tactics that you can pull, but you could invoke UA guardianship over Shinso since he attended the school. This put him in the custody of UA, and then they assign him to the care of one of the teachers, which you are a teacher there now, Seth King stated, and Izuku realized that he was true and said he would invoke it if need to be, but would rather direct custody to be gained soon. The call came to an end, and Izuku went to the to continue his patrol. And was about 4 hours into the patrol when he received a phone call from the detective. Hello Hunter, I'm calling to inform you that we did charge the foster parents with neglect and mental abuse based on my interview with them and the evidence you found. Shinso is now a ward of the state and need to go into the foster system again, or an orphanage. I can't get the caseworker to agree to let you take him. I'm sorry, the detective said, and Izuku was pissed. "Is the caseworker there right now?" Izuku asked and got on confirmation. Izuku told him that he would arrive in a few minutes, and to keep her there, Izuku quickly headed off that direction and sent his crow toward it, since they could fly faster as such. In about 5 minutes, he ended up teleporting in front of the police station and walked in and went straight toward the detective office to find the caseworker sitting there. "So please tell me why I can't take custody of the child," Izuku asked, and the caseworker looked at him and bent and down before speaking. "It's not appropriate or sensible for a child to take care of another child. You will not even have the means to take care of another human being." The caseworker said that, and Izuku resisted the urge to just slam the woman's head into the desk in front of her. "Are you stupid? I am a pro-hero, and I have the wealth and easily can take care of another human, so please tell me how I'm unable to take care of the child." Izuku asked her, and she saw a dark gleam in her eyes. Oh, she's wanted to play that damn quirkist bee likely hates so-called villain quirks, Izuku thought, as he saw the look in her eyes and recognized it as someone that looked down on others. The woman spoke up and started to sprout like a bullcrap. "This child has a history of causing issue for his caretakers and unlikely to obey you since you are another child. Also, isn't it illegal for a child at your age to be a pro-hero?" she stated and asked him. Izuku chuckled. "No, in America, it's not. I'm a pro-hero sent here by American government. I'm a special agent, which means the age laws doesn't apply to me, so you can't use my age against me. So are you going to transfer the custody of Shinso to me, or do I need to take more drastic measures?" Izuku stated, and he showed his special agent license, and she paled a bit seeing it. She had thought that the detective was joking with her and didn't believe that the pro-hero was a special agent, especially when Izuku had arrived. "I'm sure we can work something out," she said, and Izuku nodded his head. "Indeed, we will work this out by your transferring his custody to me in full and allow me to be his foster parent. Do you understand me? You will also do it right now, and it will be done in full before I leave," Izuku stated, and she nodded her head and then started working on it. After about an hour and a half, she was done and handed him paperwork signed. He used the contract to understand quirk and looked through and saw that it would grant him custody for 30 days. He slammed it down and gripped her shoulder and looked at her in the eyes behind his mask. "Do you take me for a fool? This only grants me custody of 30 days before his pair is required to go to the foster system," Izuku stated, as she paled since she hid that language deep in the contract and was confused on how he found it. "Fix it and make it state that he is my custody permanently and can't be revoked without a court order. Do you understand me?" Izuku asked, and she nodded her head and quickly made the changes. The detective just stayed silent the entire time since he was kind of afraid due to how pissed Izuku was. Soon the lady finished the paperwork and Izuku signed a new paper and the detective signed as a witness. The lady then submitted it and said it was done, and Izuku said it was free to go, and he looked at the clock and realized Stella and Shinso would be awake sooner or later. He then looked at the detective and told him to look into the caseworker since she's clearly a quirkist bee, and he nodded his head. So Izuku soon arrived at his home and slept into bed with his girlfriend and slept long enough that his power nap quirk activated and gave him all the energy he needed, though he was awoken about an hour and a half later when Stella got up and Izuku got up as well and filled her in the details. "So I'm a foster mother now?" she asked. She tilted her head and Izuku shook on his drink. I guess it's more I'm a foster father since he's under my care, but you're dating me, so I guess congratulations, but don't get spreading that since I think he will be embarrassed of for people to find out. I would need to inform the staff of UA, but the other students don't need to know. If anyone asks why why we appear close, then tell them the truth of him being my personal student, which will explain why he's near you a lot," Izuku stated, and she nodded her head and she finished getting ready and headed downstairs to the kitchen and living room. They saw Shinso drinking a coffee and a small breakfast, and then he saw, "Sorry, I helped myself," he asked, and Izuku waved him off. "It's fine, but we do need to talk about a separate matter when we are all done that I want to talk about before we go to UA," Izuku stated and nodded his head. After about 30 minutes they were all done eating and they just sat down in the living room and looked at each other. "So I'll be honest, I had my suspicion of your home life from start, and the things said tripped me off on it. I investigated your home life and your foster parents are under arrest already since last night. You've been assigned to someone else now," Izuku said, and Shinso broke into tears. Why? Why the ones that likely won't let me continue to UA? It was my dream," Shinso yelled as he stood up, and Izuku looked at him in the eyes before speaking. "I know it's your dream and it's why I couldn't let you stay in that type of home without being cared for. I've already arranged your content education at UA with the new foster parents, which happened to be me and Sella, or rather me Mingli," Izuku stated and took a sip of his coffee, and Shinso froze and just stood there in frozen manner. Sella rolled her eyes and slapped Izuku on the head and scolded him for saying it that quickly. Shinso turned to her and she explained, "My idiot love here means that you will live here from now on. He threatened the caseworker to put you in his custody as a foster child, and him the foster parent, so that doesn't make me meet your foster mother since I and him aren't married yet, but in a way it kind of does, but you don't need to see us like that anyway. You don't need to worry about going hungry or anything, since both of our families are wealthy and we can easily take care of you. So the room you're sleeping in now is yours from now on. And by the way, guys, a quick note, I'm probably gonna make Izuku 1 year older, and with Stella a half a year older than Shinso. So yeah, just a little bit to not make it weird, yeah? So as Stella stated, and Shinso broke down into tears and fell to his knees. Why are you doing this for me?" Shinso asked, and Izuku shrugged. "Honestly, you remind me of when my father found me when I ran away from my old family. I was just lucky Dad was my biological father and could take me away easier. I just felt like I needed to do it since I couldn't live with myself seeing you in that home and not actually being happy when I could provide you better. I can't exactly be a father, I guess, since we are the same age, or I'm older than you, but I can be a brother who takes care of you," Izuku asked as he leaned down and hugged Shinso, and who hugged back. Stella looked at the time, realized they will need to leave soon. "Boys, hate to break this up, but it's about time for us to go," Stella said, and they looked at the clock and agreed. Izuku told Shinso that he would need to inform UA of the change, but any of the student knowledge of the situation is up to him, since Stella and Izuku will just tell them the truth of him being Izuku's personal student to cover up the closeness, you know. Soon they headed off to school and started their last week of training, and Shinso sported a large smile all day. Then Izuku and Sella never said anything about it at all. Izuku sent Shinso straight to the gym to start training and told him that he would be there as soon as he can, since he needed to update the staff on his situation and then the case he was working on as well. As such, Izuku found himself in the staff room, and they were all surprised to see him, since he only stopped training when his personal student to eat lunch, go home, or do his office hours as the quirk specialist. "Why, hello, Hunter. What's bringing you out of your training spree?" Nizu asked in a joking tone, and we can hear multiple things. First, Need to update you on the case since I found some clues during the patrols. There has been some word around the league is recruiting more experienced members for another attack one day, so we need to be careful moving forward in the future. But I don't know how long it will take for them to recruit. But I don't expect any attacks to happen until like maybe closer to the end of the semester. I've also localized the area that they might be into, a list of prefectures based on some information that I got from Shirakumo. A lot of information he lost since the doctor always used someone with a mind-wiping quirk, but there was enough to exclude some prefectures out based on what he remembered. I do know that the doctor has a second location that may be outside of listed zones, though since Shirakumo said that he's gone to a separate location once before, but that the doctor uses different teleportation quirk to move around sometimes instead of using him. Izuku informed everyone and they nodded their heads. Izuku then was silent for a few moments before deciding on how to face next topic. So about the second thing, I'm a father now, Izuku said, and anyone who was drinking anything was shocking or had to spit their drinks out. All Might and Inko, who had just walked in the rights at that, they both fell over in shock and were out cold. Oh nice, I just killed them. Fuck yeah, Izuku said, and Aizawa shook his head. They aren't dead, only out cold from shock. Now, explain how you are a father now. Aizawa asked or said with glaring red eyes and had his quirk on. You know that does nothing to a person with as many quirks as me, right? You are only turned off like 1 or 2 from what I can feel, Izuku asked and Aizawa grumbled. Anyway, I did not get Stella pregnant. We haven't hit that stage and likely won't for a while since we let our relationship just flow as it goes, which we are happy with. However, I've gotten foster custody of Shinso. I had his foster parent arrested for the neglect and mental abuse, so Nizu, you need to update his file to my information since he lives with me from now on. Izuku stated and Nizu nodded his head and Aizawa sat down in his chair and sighed in relief. Thank God. I didn't want to be a grand uncle this soon, okay? That is fine with you taking care of him since you can without doubt afford it. Does your father know though? Aizawa asked and Izuku shrugged. Most likely since I had warned the family lawyers who likely told him and speak of the devil and he will call, Izuku said as his phone went off and it was Hisashi calling. Hisashi asked what the situation was with Shinso and Izuku explained everything and Hisashi said to bring the kid around sooner or later so he could meet him. Izuku agreed and hung the phone up after they were done and the Yagas had woken up a bit after that and asked what he meant by him being a father. If you want details, then go ask Nizu, Izuku said as he walked away and then turned to get to the... Sorry guys, I can't even barely speak. So Izuku said as he walked away and they turned and to get the details from Nizu. So no grandbabies, Inko said and Aizawa rolled his eyes. Even if he had a kid that was his or younger, then you wouldn't be grandparents since he doesn't see you like family, like Aizawa said as he walked by to go to his classroom for his homeroom before dismissing his class from them to go train. Soon, Izuku himself arrived back at the gym that he and Shinso were training in and found him working out. Okay, let's review your quirkless combat and then we will do some physical training since your body is almost at a good stage that I'm happy with, Izuku stated and Shinso nodded his head and jumped into the ring. Soon they were separating and Izuku would randomly use quirks against Shinso. The first time that Izuku did it, Shinso complained about being unfair, but Izuku quickly shot back that the world wasn't fair and that he would need to fight against quirks in the festival, regardless when they figured out his quirk out. As such, Shinso has gotten much better dodging attacks from quirks and handling his situations well. About halfway into the day, it was time for lunch and Izuku heard the door open and saw Scylla with lunch for all of them. "Ah, you brought lunch for all of us, love. Thank you," Izuku said as he jumped out of the ring, and Shinso followed soon after. They all sat down on the bench and started to eat. "Scylla, how is your training going since I haven't been able to help?" Izuku asked, and Shinso flinched at that and shrunk into himself, which Scylla noticed. "Shinso, don't blame yourself from him to not helping me. I've trained with him and his father for a long time, so it's nothing to not have him helping since I can already fight Izuku in combat for a long period of time, so I'm confident in wiping the floor with all of his classmates," Izuku Scylla said, and Shinso nodded his head to understand. Scylla then talked about how she was working on new super move since overall her combat was good enough and she wanted more finishing moves to have, and she then asked Izuku about Shinso's training. It's going through. I wish we had more time. I will have the time after this festival, well, but I want him to be as prepared as he can be. I don't see many issues for the most people he will fight, but there are some that will cause him trouble once they know his quirk. Depending on the rounds, I see him on top 10, and then it will depend on who he faces if they knew his quirk, Izuku told her, and then looked at Shinso. "Shinso, try to avoid using your quirk as long as you can and rely on your physical performance as long as you can. Your quirk will give you an advantage in the 1 versus 1, but if someone figures it out, then you will be fighting quirkless the entire time unless you can get them to speak. So the fewer times they have to study it, the better," Izuku stated, and he nodded his head. Izuku then looked at Shinso's body over and noticed it was getting closer to being in a good physical fitness state. Izuku thought some things out as he ate and decided to teach Shinso a special set of moves. "Shinso, in the ring I'm going to teach you a set moves of quirks that are manifestation of quirk gene, but the human bodies, but some are shown in different ways. Mental quirks and so forth on. Even emitter's quirk can be affected via this set of attacks. These moves will allow you to disable the quirk set for a brief set of time. They are hard to get down, but I think you might get them. So let's work on them," Izuku said, and Shinso's eyes lit up at the information and jumped in the ring with Izuku and started to learn the new sets of moves from him. Izuku taught him the basic information of where he needed to hit and the warning that his could also cause someone to go into shock since Shinso will be messing with their nerves since the brain controls everything, even a quirk. They tested it out on Izuku's shadow clones since if they died then that was fine, but the effect would be same as if it was real body. After 2 entire days of working on the moves, Shinso was able to successfully do it several times and kept refining his movement. It was now the last day of training and Izuku wanted to go over everything that Shinso had learned and had asked Stella to fight him in the open forest area. Shinso will not be provided any support gear since he would get any in the festival, but Stella had her sword which she could create. It doesn't matter if you lose. What matters is how long you last and how well you fight, since Stella could last a decent amount of time in a serious battle against me, which means she will be a good indicator depending on how long you last against her, Izuku stated, and Shinso nodded his head and was ready to fight. Izuku called for the fight to start and Shinso shot forward since he knew that Stella knew of his quirks, so he didn't even bother. As Shinso went charging at her, Stella created a fire sword and blasted the fireball at him, which he kept dodging and slowly making his way forward. His agility is much better than when he started. The most normal people would be hard pressed to judge the rapid fireballs that she's sending out. Izuku thought as he watched the fight. Then it happened. As Shinso got closer and dodged the fireball, Izuku noticed Shinso had grabbed the dirt from the ground and hid it in his hand. As Shinso got closer and he threw the dirt towards Stella, which made her close her eyes to protect her eyes from getting like stuff in it. This allowed Shinso to get closer distance and use the move sets that Izuku taught him to disable her quirks. For a brief time, Stella cursed and pushed forward since she was strong in quirkless combat as well. This is where Shinso started to lose since Stella was far better than Shinso was with only a few weeks of training, harsh training, but still only 2 weeks of it when Stella had gone years with Midoriya training her. As the fight was going on, Shinso was pinned and then out of nowhere he asked the question, "Can you get off me, mommy?" He asked and Stella uttered the response before she could catch it because it shocked her so much that he called her mommy. "Get off me and walk out of the ring," Shinso stated, and she complied and he won. He then broke the connection and she turned to him and then turned away with a massive blush on her face as Izuku fell to his side and laughed. "That it's not nice to laugh at mom," Shinso said, and Izuku cried out before he realized what happened. Then he was released out of the quirk and he looked at Shinso who had the grin on his face and then looked at Stella who had the smirk. "Indeed, it's not nice to laugh at me, why dear, like my dear," Stella said, and Izuku rolled his eyes before he had the grin on his face. "Oh, that means we admit that Shinso is our kid now. I'm fine with that. Congratulations on being a mother at 15, my love," Izuku stated with a grin as he decided to lift Shinso up in his arm and rock him side to side, which caused him to blush hard. "Wait, I didn't," he tried to cry out, but Izuku wasn't having it. "Nope, you're our child from now on. Doesn't matter that we are all the same age. I'm a dad now and I want to be called as such. My old man will be happy to know his 200-year-old ass now is a grandfather," Izuku stated, and Stella was still frozen at Izuku's comments. Then she snapped out of it at the grandfather comment and broke into laughter. "You know what, Shinso? If you want us to be your parents, then it's fine with me, since Izuku will be giving me an anti-aging quirk in a year or two so that we can live for centuries, so it doesn't matter to me. I also want to see what my parents do when they learn they are grandparents now," Stella said, as she started to laugh, and Shinso was still embarrassed with himself as he was trying to hide his face, but Izuku was still carrying him as a baby. "Stop, please, you're going to make me desire something that can't be happen," Shinso said, and Izuku looked at Stella and nodded his head and she did the same. "Shinso, we are serious. If you want to see us as parents, we are fine with it. It indeed will be weird to others, but we are fine with it, so take your time and let us know if you want to be Hitoshi Midoriya, and I can adopt you at any moment." And like notice, Izuku stated, and Shinso looked at him and in shock, and they looked at Stella, and then he broke into tears as Izuku and Stella hugged him. Both of them knew that they would never be conventional people, and this was just another thing unconventional about them, since it seemed they just adopted a child that's the same age as them. Shinso then asked them if they would adopt him, and they nodded their heads as Izuku pulled his phone out and called the family lawyer. "Seth, I need you to set up an adoption paper for Shinso. I want to be adopted by Stella and myself, and he will take on the Midoriya last name. So moving forward, he will be Hitoshi Midoriya," Izuku stated, and Seth said he would get working on it and get the commotion president to help leverage it and get Shinso American citizenship as well. Izuku then looked at Shinso and told him it will be a bit of time since they will need to apply some pressure on the officials to get it done, since it's an international adoption. Since Izuku and Stella were foreign in Japan, you will be granted American citizenship after a while and become Hitoshi Midoriya, but you can go ahead and tell anyone you are our kids, because I'm without a doubt flaunting it to the staff. I can't wait to make All Might and Green Tornado collapse in shock again. Also, regardless of what they say about you, are not their grandchild. Screw them, Izuku stated with a grin, and Shinso fell to his side in laughter. Stella just rolled her eyes and was interested in seeing how her parents reacted to this. She texted them and waited for the phone call. 5 minutes later, a cell phone was buzzing and she answered it to what's screaming from her father. "What do you mean I'm a grandfather? I know you two might screw each other, but come on, you two," Francis yelled, and Izuku laughed with Stella. "Francis, calm down and let me explain," Izuku said into the phone, which was on the speaker. "Fine, explain now," stated Francis with a rough tone, and Izuku explained how Shinso came into their life and that they first took him as a foster child, since Izuku didn't want his dream of going to UA to get ended up, but then Shinso made a joke about Stella being his mother in a spar to win, which involved into them acting adopting him. Moving forward, Francis was silent for a few more minutes before speaking. "So she's not pregnant?" he asked, and Izuku said no. "Thank God, no pregnancy until she's graduated, please, okay? So Hitoshi, is that the same age as you two, right?" Francis asked, and Izuku confirmed. "God, you two are a weird couple, but the entire Midori family is a complex mess to start with. So I'm not surprised by something like this. Okay, well, bring him to visit us sooner or later when you guys have a break or something. I'm going to go back to sleep since your children are making me feel old," Francis stated, and he hung the call up without even checking with them that the call was over, and Stella fell to her side in laughter. Suddenly, Izuku's phone vibrated with a text message from Hisashi. He tried that it had seen his call coming from the two of them and wanted them to visit during the break. Izuku rolled his eyes at his father's text and showed the others. "Well, let's call the training over and just relax since there is only a weekend left before the sports festival and you two need to relax for it," Izuku said, and they all nodded their heads as they headed to the house. Izuku just gave Hitoshi a credit card and explained that he could use it for whatever since Izuku made enough money from the pro hero work. "You belong to the family more than you did starting today out, as just accepted it. We are your parent now, so we just spend what you need for any of your needs or wants. I'm not saying to go spend it like crazy, but don't worry about feeding yourself or buying yourself a drink from soda machine or anything else. Just use it freely, and if I see an issue with spending, I will bring it up to you. If I think you are spending like crazy, which I doubt, I will need to, okay?" Izuku asked, and Shinso nodded his head. As soon they all enjoyed dinner and went about their night. So Izuku, Stella and Hitoshi all got up and did their normal routines and got ready for the day. Izuku got into his hero outfit and waited for the others too. "Come on, son, you're going to be slower than your mother, which is hard to do," Izuku said, but regretted it right away when he got hit in the back of his head with a brush from glaring Stella. "Oops," Izuku said with his hand raised, and Hitoshi just walked by snickering, which earned a glare from Izuku. "Watch yourself, Izuku, or you will end up on the couch," Stella stated, and she walked by Izuku, who paled a bit, and Hitoshi only broke out in laughter at Izuku's face. "Oh, whose is me? My son has betrayed me for his mother. Where did all the male bonding between father and son go?" Izuku fake pouted, and Hitoshi just groaned out at that comment and shook his head as Izuku just hugged into him and dragged his feet a bit. Stella just rolled her eyes with a smirk on her face. All three of them have gotten closer, and Hitoshi has started to call them mother and father more often since he craved positive attention from parental figures in his life. Izuku knew that Hitoshi would need therapy like he did when he was a child, but that would likely take time to get him to agree to it. Soon they were all in the car and were off to UA. After they arrived, Izuku split off from both of them and left to the staff room. He knew that the Yages weren't in the staff room yet, so he got everyone else's attention. "Excuse me, B, you know the curse word?" I have an announcement to make, Izuku said, and they all rolled like their eyes at his dramatic flair. Nizu just looked at him without changing expression. So you all know how I took Hitoshi in as a foster child over a week ago? He asked, and they all nodded their heads, and Izuku smirked and Aizawa felt a headache coming. Well, as of last Friday the plans have changed and now it will be an adoption, so Hitoshi Shinso will be Hitoshi Midoriya once the paperwork is done. This means Stella and me will be parents, Izuku stated with a smirk on his face. The statement did get a reaction out of Nizu as he did spit like tea. And looked at Izuku as if he grew a second head. Even the other staff were all frozen as Izuku smacked his head and groaned. Why? He asked, and Izuku explained what happened in the spar between Stella and Hitoshi, and they all impressed he won the spar but laughed when they heard how the adoption process started. If you would mind, don't tell the Yages since they don't need to have anything to do with him. I've already told everything about my past, my quirk, my father, his quirk, and anything I could think of Hitoshi, so they can buzz off since he doesn't like them either, Izuku stated, and they all nodded their heads at that, and Izuku just decided to sit down and do some paperwork since they will all be moving to the sports festival stadium in an hour or so since it will be starting soon. After an hour or so, they all made their ways to the stadium and students were also entering their waiting room. That is how Stella found herself being talked to by Yage, Bakugo and Todoroki, who all changed to fight and wanted to wager Izuku coming back to them. That just annoyed Stella and like we can hear. You still haven't changed, have you? She asked them and they looked confused. She stood up and scoffed at him. You still act as if he is some piece of property that you can control when he is a human being. You have zero rights to make any decision for him, and Yage, your mother, doesn't even have any custodial right to Izuku either since the court deemed her unfit to be his mother, so how about you stop trying to treat him just like you did all those years ago? It's disgusting and pathetic, Stella stated and before walking off, and everyone was confused by what Stella meant and looked at the three for answers. But they didn't speak since they were frozen. They didn't know that the court deemed Inko unfit and was confused on how that happened without them knowing about it, but decided they would need to ask Yage later. Soon they were all called out to their field and Prison Mike did his introduction for all of the classes. Now, let's have the first years. Representative who took first in the hero course exam but also first in written exam. Stella Vermilion. Prison Mike called out. Stella went up to the stage and waited for the crowd to quiet down. She then spoke once they did. Today, we gather here to show off our abilities but to show the world the new generation of heroes, of business leaders and support creators. We are here to declare to the world who we are and what we want to inspire in this world. If we inspire peace, if we inspire hope, and if we inspire determination, we are the new generation. Like every generation, we will have our flaws and errors, but we will look at the past generation and try to be better than they were and fix the flaws that we can see with their generation. So watch us as we all stand on the stage and make our declaration to the world and declaration to the world that we don't need to rely on the old guard anymore, for we are the new guard of the society. Let us go beyond plus ultra, Stella stated, and everyone broke into a cheer at her word as they were inspirational. Soon the first round was called to start and it was an obstacle course around the stadium. Stella stayed near the back since she was just going to fly over everyone and she just waited for the starting gun to go off. Hitoshi thought was near the front and was ready. Right as the gun went off, Hitoshi darted off and was glad that he had trained a lot with Izuku, which includes stamina training. As he was running, he saw someone fly over his head and saw it was Stella with her fire wings. Well, I knew I wasn't going to beat her in this anyway, Hitoshi thought as he kept running. There was only a handful of people in front of him the entire time, which sadly included all of the people that harmed him, harmed his adoptive father. The race kept on going forward, and the first obstacle was the 0-pointers from what entrance exam, which Stella just went straight through as she sent a path of fire melting right through the robot, which destroyed them as well. Stella also flew right over the second, as well as she rolled her eyes, thinking that this obstacle course did nothing against people with flying abilities. Since Hitoshi was making his way across the tight metal roads and made his way across the open pits, and soon made his way to the next obstacle course and kept going. As everyone was nearing the end, Hitoshi decided to pull a Midoriya and dug up the mines and slammed the metal part down on them as they exploded him and set him flying forward and past Izuku abusers. He then slammed it again, which caused another explosion, knocking them into the landmines on the ground. Hitoshi then landed and ran and made it to the end, which meant he came in second place with Stella in first. The abusers from Izuku Pass came in 5th, 6th and 7th place, and some other coming in 3rd and 4th. Hitoshi was happy with himself for placing 2nd place. Soon the 42nd person came into the arena and the second round was called to start. It was kind of hill type game, but with the 16 pillars that people had maintained control of to get into the next round, as only 16 people would move into the final round. Hitoshi knew he would likely end up using his quirk in this portion of the exam and hated it, but he knew he would need to use it lightly. But he also remembered Izuku's advice to disguise the activation trigger with his hand movement or some sort of distraction, such as widening one eye or something to make people think the trigger was something else. As such, the round started with all 42 people, and Stella just stood on the top place and created a ring of fire that stopped everyone from getting to her. The crowd went wild over her dominance in the sports festival. Shinso himself went for the spot in the middle, deciding not to push for the top spot, since the stronger people would go for them, and the weaker students will fight for the lower ones since they were easier to get to. As such, Izuku planned Shinso planned his strategy out and just waited for the storm out, as not many people tried to go for his position, and the ones that did, he was able to defeat without using his quirk, since they were all weaker and physical department than he was. As such, the time dragged on. About the time was finally called. The last 16 people were announced. Stella took the first place, fought again, and Shiso took the 10th, since he stayed near the middle of the pack the entire time. They were all given times for an hour break, and Izuku decided to go meet the both of them for lunch. As such, he got up and left the staff booth, but unconsciously tried to stop him and ask him to join them for lunch, but he used his quirk to disappear into the shadow. What they were not expecting, though, it was for their daughters Bakugo and Todoroki to appear about 5 minutes later with a question about Inko having her right as a mother for Izuku removed by court. "How did you guys hear about that?" Inko asked, and they said that Stella stated it in 1A waiting room when they had challenged her to get Izuku back, and Aizawa just smacked his forehead, which when he had walked in since he was at the announcer booth. "Really you are three idiots," he stated, and they looked at him. "I'm considering expelling you if this is really how you are acting, since it shows you haven't changed at all for all of those years ago. You're still treating Izuku as an object that you can do whatever you want with. Hound Dog, they need more therapy." Aizawa stated as he just walked right back out of the door, and Hound Dog responded that he would talk about it in their sessions. They were shocked to be told the same thing that Stella had told them. The Yage's parents thought shook their heads and explain what they could without giving everything away. If Stella and Izuku did, then that was their right, but the Yage parents were still blocked by Izuku order as special agent to not reveal the information. As such, the three children were still left with the questions but had no answers for them, since the adult didn't provide them, and only responded that they were blocked from talking more about it without Izuku or Stella talking about it first. With that, guys, I'm gonna end this video here. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I really can't talk, bro. I'm so done right now. I'm gonna take probably a day just to relax or two. So yeah. As I always say, stay home, stay safe, wash your hands, spend the time with the most precious people you have, and take care of yourself because you're most individual person. And by the way, as coming back to school is going on, stay focused on your studies. Don't waste your time playing a lot. Trust me, you will regret it if you fail or anything. So keep on studying and keep yourself on improving your mental health and physical health. Improve yourself, don't focus on other distractions. With that, also don't forget to support us with a like and subscribing. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm and yada yada yada. And see you next video. Peace out. Bye bye.